do what we plan to do. So if you'll hang on here for a minute, let me see if I can throw this up on the screen here. I'm gonna minimize
Hey,
that.
Hank,
Yeah, who's that?
can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Bob, K0PB.
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah, I saw a couple. Okay, I saw a couple people in there, and I didn't see any call letters. So I wonder if those are hams. Maybe before you get going, we could find out who they are, have them introduce themselves.
Oh, that's a good idea. Well, you know Lee and myself. Uh, Dave Herzog is a Red
Yeah,
Cross guy,
I see Dave and Red Cross.
and yeah, let's go over here to
Oh,
Fayette.
okay.
You know, if you go to the upper right hand corner of your own picture, there's three dots there, and you can click those three dots and rename yourself to put your name and your call letters in there. That would be really helpful if you could do that. I see Fayette, Fayette.
Okay, who's Fayette?
Well, he's got, yeah, come on in.
That's me, Eddie Mashevitz, Kilo Bravo 3, Yankee Romeo Uniform. I'm Mary's Emergency Coordinator for Fayette County, also the Southwest District Skywarn Coordinator. I'm in charge of 9 counties in southwestern PA. Hank, you remember me? We always used to pass traffic together on
Yep.
3rd Region, and I did net control for 3rd Region for a while.
Okay, that's great. And
Hank, can I add too? Eddie is also the Red Cross chapter ecom lead for the Chestnut Ridge chapter, which has about 6 or 8 counties.
outstanding. I have my assistant emergency coordinators on board here. There's Robert, K0PB, and Ed, KB2JKR, and Pete, KC3POC. And Robert was up at our EOC as a relay station, and Pete and Ed manned headquarters stations at the simulated shelter at Wallenpaupack Area High School. So thank you so much for checking into our little debriefing this evening, and we're certainly interested in your input and your comments. And let me flip back to that screen again. All righty, let's see. We want to go to full screen here. And let me pull this down a little bit. And slideshow. Click that from the beginning. Okay. And we had gone over this last week, so I'm just going to kind of blow through it pretty quick here. And okay, here's the scenario. And we didn't care what kind of a storm it was. A major storm came in that hit our area, and it was expected to last longer than just one day. Widespread power outages, telephone is out, the cell phone towers are out, the internet is down, the world's coming to an end, no normal communications. We receive a telephone call, actually a message from the EMA, Wayne County EMA, that they're declaring an emergency, and they've asked the American Red Cross to come in and set up a shelter at Wallenpaupack Area High School. And they contacted me and asked us for communications help from the high school. So that was the basic scenario. And both the Red Cross and Wayne County EMA are our served agencies. So this was an appropriate response for this type of a scenario. So what would we do? The most important thing, of course, was to be a liaison station, communicating messages back and forth to the Red Cross facility down in Stroudsburg, and make sure that there was a good communications link between the shelter and Stroudsburg. And while we're at it, we were in a position to provide some health and welfare messages to the people who were occupying the shelter, letting their families know that they were okay and that they would get in touch with them as soon as they possibly could. So we had primary objectives and secondary objectives for the simulated emergency test. Well, how did we get to it? In a real world situation, there would be lots of phone calls, a chain calls to all of the ham radio operators, alerting them to the fact that storm is coming in and they should be preparing themselves for that. Anticipation of the storm, we probably would be updating the status of our Aries operation from inactive to a hot standby. And then when the storm gets closer to activate it again to an activated alert. And when that happens, everybody should be monitoring our primary frequency, repeater frequency, which, by the way, does have emergency power in it. Okay, the storm is on top of us. The world comes to an end. Communications is out. We hunker down. So what's next? We check into the net. Notify the net control station of your status. Can you help out or not? You got problems at home. That's the number one thing. You got to make sure your home is safe. So you were either home and not available to help, home, maybe you could do some relaying, or you were able to be deployed to the shelter to help out. What's the next thing you do? Review our manual. That's the Bible, tells us what to do whenever we have an emergency. Once we find out the number of people who can help us either as relays or being deployed, the leadership quickly puts together an operation plan, and then the net control station assigns people for deployments, tasks, and responsibilities, and we set up the communications processes and frequencies. This is what would happen in a real emergency. Me, I was going to be home. I'll get in contact with the EOC, and I would be relaying messages down to Stroudsburg at the Monroe County EC. I would be putting messages on the national traffic system for the health and welfare, and I would be sending messages out to Pittsburgh with our reports and our 205 forms and so forth. After everything was assigned, then K0PB at the EOC took over net control responsibility from there. What did Robert do? He was the relay station between the headquarters stations at the high school and me. All the traffic in the high school and the EOC would be on 14643 simplex. All traffic between Robert and me was on 14658 simplex. And at the start of the drill, we had some people operating from home who couldn't make it to the high school, so they operated over the repeater, simulating their functions over the repeater. Okay. We had two headquarters stations at Wallenpaupack Park Area High School. Ed JKR was the net control station for the headquarters station handling Red Cross traffic. And the rovers, Alan, Carl, and Rob, were assigned to walk with Red Cross personnel in the shelter. Then we had the health and welfare headquarters station. Pete manned that. And Craig, Keith, and Jim simulated walking around the shelter, talking to people and seeing if they needed to get health and welfare messages out to their friends and relatives. This is the high school, and I think that the headquarters stations were out in this parking lot here, and then the other stations were randomly placed around the high school. We actually did not go into the high school, but they made their communications from those locations. So this is how the traffic went to the Red Cross. These rovers were hanging with Red Cross people. They sent messages to the headquarters. The headquarters sent them to the EOC. The EOC sent them to me. I sent them to Monroe. Monroe sent them to Red Cross in Stroudsburg. And back, of course. And this is how we handled the health and welfare traffic. Craig and Keith and Jim basically picked up people's messages, radioed them to Pete at the health and welfare headquarters, send them to Robert, send them to me, and I put them up on the national traffic system through George, W3GWM, our section manager, and he sent the radiograms out to be delivered. And I'm not going to go through all of the stuff about how to send the messages. This was all part of the training, our training purposes of it, how to do it. And basically everybody was following these instructions. Everything was put in everybody's personal logbooks. And I think that just winds it down. So with that, I will stop this and let's do a roundtable here. And let me start it off with Robert, are you still alive there? I don't see your picture. Yo, K0PB, Pocono Bob. All right, let's back off on that. Let's go to Peter, KC3POC. You handled the health and welfare, right?
I did, and I noticed that you minimized the importance of me spelling Wallenpolpak phonetically. I had to do that as quickly as you did, but I did it. It was an interesting.
That was funny. And I heard Robert do it fast too. So
nobody does it as quickly as you do. That was impressive. No, but I think it was great. I think the guys responded. They, there were a couple of hitches. Like I was expecting to get comments from the rovers in plain English, and a couple of them read them to me like radiograms. So nothing wrong with that, except that it was probably in an emergency, it would have been more time consuming than necessary. And yeah. I would have converted those and sent them off, but it was okay. It was great. It was great. I think the guys did really good. I think everybody did good. My compliments to Robert, man. He took information from everybody and then sent it off to you. You got as much information. I thought I got inundated. You guys got it doubled. Yeah. So, or quadrupled. So it was good.
Well, the reason, and let me explain this to Dave and the other guys, the Red Cross guys. When we had rovers walking through the shelter, hanging with the Red Cross people or picking up messages from people who were in the shelter, they don't have the time to sit down and write formal messages, formal radiograms or formal ICS 213 messages. They take the information down in their personal logbook and communicate it to the headquarters station in plain language. And just using plain language back and forth, making sure that we have the information correct, who the messages are going to, their contact information, what they want to say, and so on and so forth. Also, for the health and welfare, we had standard messages using ARL codes, that it was a message via ham radio, that they were okay, that they were at Wallenpaupack High School shelter, and that they would call their friends as soon as they were able to do so. This was a standard message that we would send, and we would tell people that we have this standard message, and would you like it to be sent to this person or that person or whatever. And that was communicated to the headquarters stations in plain language. The headquarters station is the one that would take that plain language and put it into a radiogram form, or in the case of the Red Cross messages, put it into an ICS 213 form, and then send it over to Robert at the EOC. But great job, Pete, and I'm glad
Thank
you did a good.
Hey, Hank, I got one more point that I wanted to make, if that's okay. One more point.
Yeah, sure.
At the time of the exercise, you know, I had confirmed that I could communicate on simplex with KOPB.
Yeah.
While I was traveling to the high school.
Yeah.
I also brought my handheld with me, which I thought was a good idea in the event that a rover didn't have a handheld with him. He would be able to communicate with me.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good idea to maybe suggest that people that go to the headquarters bring a handheld if they have one,
Right.
so that it can be utilized if we can.
That's a great idea.
Just-
Excellent. Okay, let's see. Where's Ed?
He was,
KB2 JKR, where are
he
you?
was muted.
I'm here. I just unmuted. I was muted, so you didn't hear me having
Yeah,
my
my
frustrations like before.
I was looking for your picture on my screen.
I'm up here.
You did the other headquarters station. What was your experience?
I did the headquarters for the Red Cross Official Communications. The rovers were good. Like I said, some of them went a little bit too far, not too far, but they went into more detail than common language. It was done well. I think that in real life, KOPB should have had an extra hand up there because she was inundated with messages, especially if it was really in true time going back and forth. I also had 2 extra portables in the car just in case we had somebody have a hiccup. You know, I had backup equipment with me. I've done this several times. I used to do it with Pike County, like I told you before, Pike County areas. And otherwise, I think it went very well. And, you know, there's not much I can say different. It was a real life set, as far as I can tell.
Outstanding. Very, very good. And again, thank you for your participation.
Oh, my pleasure.
Robert, you were the next one in the chain. K0PB up at the EOC. And I was hoping that Debbie was going to be able to check into the net, into the video conferencing this evening. I did have a couple of emails back and forth to her. She did a super job, and I really appreciate it. Robert's printer went down. So I sent all of our communications, all of the messages, all of the paperwork that I generated. I sent it to Debbie over at the EOC, and she printed it all out and put it in the radio room for Robert. Robert, come on in with your experience.
Okay, Hank. Okay, Hank, very good. Let's see. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, I have a very unstable computer situation here. So let's see if we can keep it going. Yeah, it would have been great to have Debbie in here. I sure had a good time with her, and she got a chance to say hello to Ed and Pete over the air. She was sitting in a chair off to the side just for a few minutes, and she was great. I'm glad that she was able to help us out by printing those copies of the traffic and the instructions and everything. and she was a champ. That's absolutely for sure. And we should probably send her a radiogram or an ICS 213 thank you message or something, but we'll see how that goes. By the way, Ed's the only image I see tonight. Hello, Ed. Um, and he would he was talking, he had a great echo going through. He had
I did
I'm
too.
not
Yeah.
okay. There we are. He had an echo, and I was able to hear him okay. Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah, yeah, it's great on everybody. I tell you, it was wonderful. It's perfect. Those guys were so easy to work with, both Ed and Pete and you. And I think the only, and by the way, let me see, I see Dave, KC3KAG in here. Welcome to you. And I think it was KB3YRU. Maybe that was the Fayette operator there. Uh, and there's other ones in here that I haven't really talked to personally here, but hello to all of you. Um, and by the way, my call is Kilowatt Zero Papa Bravo. I'm Robert in Lakewood, Pennsylvania, way up north, mostly out of reach from repeaters and a lot of stations on direct. But it was good to be down there at the EOC. I took a picture of the station setup, by the way, so we can post that on the website if you want to at some point. But anyway, like I said, everything was great. Everyone did a wonderful job. I saw no real hiccups. A lot of it was casual, not much of it, a little bit, but you know, I had my problems and with dates and times and everything, and got corrected. And it was good that I had the feedback from Ed and Pete. Um, the only problems that I really saw that were really an issue during the whole thing was the interference on 2 meters from the other communications that goes on there. And it was sometimes nearly impossible to hear you guys. I think Ed probably came through the best, maybe Ed and Pete, but had a lot of trouble with you, Hank. And of course, you had to turn your antenna down south to send traffic, and you couldn't hear me when you did that, and I couldn't hear you. So you were turning that antenna back and forth. So that that was a little bit difficult situation because of the direction, the directivity of your antenna. So I don't know what could be done about that other than to have an additional antenna that's non-directional. But the biggest problem was the communications interference with the weather reports coming through, and a lot of intermod, and it made it really difficult. And I missed a lot of information at different times because of that. Other than that, and you know, I sent you a radiogram this evening on the net on 2 meters, and linked with that is that I have not really to be a part of this meeting right now, but I got some ideas for the future, for a kind of a follow up and additional things that we might be able to do. The one thing that stood out to me was that we had all the traffic laid out for us, and all we had to do was really read it. And so we didn't we didn't have the responsibility, and it was quite a responsibility of originating and creating traffic, creating the ICS 213 message, and all of the 7ABC and the 9ABC reply and all of that. I had it right in front of me, so it was no problem at all because of that. And this same thing with the radiograms. We had those things, and we knew ahead of time what they were going to be. So down the road, I think it'd be nice to follow up with another, maybe kind of a mini SCT, just all of us at home, going through the practice of originating messages from ourselves to the EOC or to the EOC on ICS 213s, and also originating from scratch our own radiograms to send. And that would be kind of a fun thing to do. And then if we did that, at some point we could also throw in Ed and Pete and maybe any others that want to just stand in as net control and run the net and be harassed by everybody back and forth. And I think it would give them a good opportunity to experience that side of it by running that net. And I think that would be a good thing. That's about all I have. Anyway, just my congratulations to everybody for a job well done. WA2CCN K0 Papa Bravo.
K0PV, WHCCN, right back. Okay, well, that's great. And I'd like to now throw it to our rovers and see how they made out on that. Let's start off with Keith, KC3NDU. You were a rover for health and welfare, right?
Yes, I was, Hank. Like Robert had said, it was all laid out in front of us. I think this was the second, or quite possibly maybe the third SET that I've participated in with you.
Right.
And it's I was more confident with this one, much more confident than I was in the past two that we had done. And I think everyone had just rose to the level of training that they've been getting. And so for, you put in a pound of flesh, you can take a pound of flesh out. Everyone's doing their job and they're learning. I'm learning as well. The training is there for us. The teacher always appears, and it went really well. I'm happy with the way it worked out. I'm happy with my performance. I thought Pete did a great job. He's a brand new guy. He did a fantastic job. And I was listening to Robert and I was on the Simplex channels, and just the intricacies of everything. I thought it went fantastic. I couldn't have been happier with our part of it. And I hope you were as happy as I am.
All right. Well, that's I certainly was very, very pleased with how it went out. And thanks again for your participation. Alan, where are you? KB3 UPT.
Not there.
All right. Let's see. You were over at the high school, right? Where did Alan go? No, there.
He's not at his station.
I guess he went to go make tinkle or something like that. I don't know.
Alan.
All right. Who else was there? Let's see. QPA, Rob, QPC. You were at the high school, right? Can't hear you. Are you muted?
He's not muted. Now he is. He wasn't.
Yeah, I
Can't hear you, Rob.
Can't hear you, Rob. Let's see. Okay, Rob. No, I still can't hear you.
That's strange. Ed's the only one I can see.
How about now?
Now we got you.
I apparently had a
There you
other
go.
mute button on my computer I didn't see.
Hey.
Everybody good?
Yeah, I
Good.
hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
Obviously, this is my first SCT
Yep.
since I'm new to the hobby. I'm one of the rovers that was guilty of relaying the message from the Red Cross to the headquarters using the ICS format, but I blame that on us, basically having it scripted. I think in real life situation, we wouldn't have had it scripted. It wouldn't have been tempted to do that. As I said on the debriefing on the radio afterwards, and some other people mentioned here tonight, would have been nice to have more people up at the EOC. Maybe have one person handling the health and welfare, one person handling the Red Cross messages. But I realized it might require some additional equipment. As for the problems at the EOC, I don't know if how they could handle that. I don't know if there's any kind of filters they could put in, to prevent the interference on 2 meters. But certainly that's something to be looked into. And that's all I have.
All right, well, very good. And that's an excellent comment. Keep in mind that if this were a real situation, things would be taking place much slower. We wouldn't be having message after message after message, bang, bang, bang. Things would be going much, much slower. And that's one of the reasons why we probably would have been able to do okay using the single simplex frequency and so forth in a real world application. And by the way, there is a huge tower a couple of 100 yards away from the EOC up on the same hill there that has the National Weather Service broadcasting on 162.55 megahertz. It's only 15 or 16 megahertz away from the frequencies that we were using. And they're putting 500 watts out on that into a gain antenna, so it can be heard all over the place. And we are just the receiver that we have is it just can't handle that in the front end. So we're getting a lot of cross mod there. The only way that I know of to fix that is to put a real narrow band high Q filter right on the input. We just got to protect the input of the receiver from that huge adjacent frequency signal. But that's something that we're going to have to deal with because the EOC ain't going to move and that tower ain't going to move. So that's something that we're going to have to put on the list. But thanks for your participation. Alan's back at KB3 UPT. Your comments, pal. You were up at the high school too. Gotta unmute yourself.
Yes, I was at the high school. I was doing the ICS 213 messages. I think what struck me as a distinct advantage, you had you were the screenwriter for this show, and the way you laid it out, I thought was excellent because it was NIMS ICS expandable. And I think that shows that we're moving in the right direction and following the federal government requirements for meeting their rules in the event of a disaster. And not only that, meeting their rules if ever we could qualify for some sharing money to help our club.
Right, we used the kill version.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. A good comment, Alan. Thank you. And again, thanks for your participation. Let's see, who else do we have here? Let's see, Robert, you missed the whole show because you got married. So do you have any comments? Unmute yourself.
No, I was I was a bundle of nerves and looking at the prettiest girl in the universe, and I don't care what anyone else says. So that's my comments on everything. I'll wait for the next go around.
That's great. Well, let's see. Tom, KC3 HOS. Do you have any comments?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm brand new here. I'm from Madison Township in Lackawanna County. It was the first time listening on your net this evening. I figured I'd join you on the Zoom, trying to learn as much as I can. So that's all I'll say. Thanks for the time.
Okay, well, thank you very much for checking in. You're certainly welcome and do appreciate it. And let's see, Kevin, into KJW.
Evening, everybody. I'm sorry I missed it. It was something, once I heard about it, I was looking forward to it until I realized that I was going to be out of town. But I'm only 2.9 miles line of sight from the repeater across the lake. So it's a pretty straight shot.
Yep.
And I was looking forward to doing some emergency preparedness work. And this set looked like a good opportunity to do that. But well, there'll be others in the future. I'll get hooked up with something else going on.
All right, great.
That's it for me. Back to you.
All right, well, my boss in this was Dave, KC3KAG. He's the one who threw me into this thing here, and we're honored to be able to help out the Red Cross and participate in this. And we certainly hope that we met your expectations for this particular simulated emergency test. And by the way, guys, we were representing all of Northeast Pennsylvania in this. So I'd like to have your comments, Dave.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, first of all, Hank, thanks for inviting me to this this report after the set exercise. I learned a lot just talking or hearing everyone talk.
Give me just a couple minutes here. I'm in a Zoom meeting. Okay.
And I want to thank everybody on the call who participated in that as well. One of the roles that I have is to try to just coordinate our amateur radio capability within the 61 counties all across 8 chapters. And Hank was gracious enough to get involved in helping Paul Ringheiser, who is our emergency communication chapter lead for the Northeast chapter of the Red Cross up in Wilkes-Barre, and all the counties around that as well. A half dozen or more of which are in Hank's area. So Paul and he worked together on this plan, and I'm really impressed with how complete everything is. And just hearing how you relate all the messages and everything is exactly the way we would expect it to be done, and really appreciative that you guys did this and laid it out this way. So I just want to also just stress the importance that it is to have a partnership with a group like Aries and with Hank and you and everyone who participates in this, because we just started teaching a class for some of the Red Cross volunteers that wanted to learn amateur radio. And the first thing we did was show them a YouTube on what amateur radio operators did during Hurricane Katrina, and also what they did down in Puerto Rico after the hurricane down there. And it's really impressive that when all else fails, really it is amateur radio that gets the job done. And we never know when that's going to happen, but we know it is going to happen at some point. So I'm really impressed that you guys are really ready and able and willing to do that for our chapters in the eastern part of Pennsylvania. So I want to thank you for that. Eddie, do you want to say anything from the Western PA? You're the ECOM lead for the Keystone Ridge chapter and also the EC for Fayette County.
Yeah, good evening, Dave and everybody. And thanks, Dave, for letting me know about this. I found out today, and I definitely wanted to get in here. I am the area's emergency coordinator for Fayette County. I've been doing it a little over 3 years. For a matter of fact, the 18th of this month will be 3 years since I was appointed by the Western PA section manager, Joe Shapinas. And I have, a whopping 3 years coming up also for the Western Pennsylvania Phone Traffic Net, doing traffic handling radiogram messages, that's how I got to hook up with Hank there at W2 CCN and George Miller and all those guys. I'm glad, Dave, that you have the confidence in me to do this for the American Red Cross, and I thought that's another way that I could help out. I am the Southwest District Skywarn coordinator. I've been with the National Weather Service Pittsburgh office for over 49 years, heading for my 50th year. I'm also a CERT volunteer. I'm a CERT certified instructor for the Community Emergency Response Team and trainer. I'm a Weather Ready Nation ambassador. I have a Aries Facebook page for Group 051, which are registered through the ARRL, and also have a Skywarn group page on Facebook for Fayette County. And we keep posted up weather preparedness, that type of thing. We do have a severe weather awareness week coming up very soon here throughout the whole Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So we keep that in mind. But yeah, what we did to give you a little bit of an outline, our scenario was a low pressure system southeast of our area, which brought warm, moist air into the area, caused river ice jam flooding, rapid rises on the rivers. Now, I'm also a CoCoRaHS observer. So what I did was I got together a whole bunch of CoCoRaHS observers throughout our Southwest District and into most of all Western Pennsylvania section. We provided the National Weather Service the precipitation reports over amateur radio. We also had 27 river ice observers that we got trained in the Western Pennsylvania section. So what we did was we formed a new partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And we brought them in. We had our amateur radio operators stationed or along our major rivers due to the river flooding from the Yauk Lake, which brings a lot of the river water down through the Youghiogheny River, down to Pittsburgh, and also the Monongahela River. We set up an MCOM trailer on the Cheat River banks. And this is the first time that we've ever tried this. My assistant EC for Fayette County, KD8BMI, Alan, was down there with his trailer, and he had to move about four or five different times to get a good enough location and a vantage point. But by golly, we got the communications through. Again, we used U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Some of the guys had problems, which is typical when you're working with a served agency such as that for the first time. But we come up with a lot of things. We found out a lot of things with the locks and dams that we never knew about before. And they have their own radios. Some of them we are trying to get involved now because of this into amateur radio, so that if they're at a lock and dam site, or they're along the river, or if even on the river boats, that they can contact and find out when they're going to be suspending navigation, extent of flooding, and so forth. We're compiling a list of things. Well, we've been doing this over the last several years. What spot to look for flooding first, work from there. Where would be our evacuation points in a specific area? And here in Fayette County, we're in the rural area. Then it gets down into Dave's area. And this is another reason I'm glad I get to work with Dave, because all of our water goes down into Allegheny County.
Right.
And we can
Ed.
let them know ahead of time if something is coming down to their area.
Yeah. Hey, Ed,
Yes, sir.
how many Aries members do you have in your county?
In my county, I have 15.
Okay.
We have several other counties that we work together with. We can talk to 2 meter. If the repeaters go down, we have our assigned simplex frequencies. Every 6 months, we run the simplex exercise. We have one of those coming up. I've been asked to not only do net control to teach net control operations, also net operations, and along with traffic handling. I had to do an impromptu traffic handling class with a gentleman that just became a ham operator that did not have a clue. Well, I had two of them. One did not have a clue of how to run the net. The other one didn't have a clue on traffic handling. I was contacted by KA3UTD Terry Nimitz, and he said, "Hey, Eddie, I know you're good with traffic handling. Can you do me a favor?" And I said, "Now, you know, Terry, I can't refuse you." So he said, can you teach W3OY Ray how to handle traffic?
Right. Hey, Dave,
Yeah.
in your county, how many Aries members do you have? Do you know?
You know, I think it's 50 some areas. I'd have to check with my EC. He's Bob Bente. I don't know the exact count, but it's more than 50, obviously more than 15, but
Yeah, because that's a pretty
big,
populated area.
heavily populated area.
Yeah.
I was wondering, can I have 2 minutes at a time? I'd like to show
Yeah,
the
sure,
map.
go ahead.
Okay, let me share my screen if you guys can just put up with me for another minute here. Oops. All right. Can you see the map of Pennsylvania?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to show you a little bit about what I was talking about. This is Eddie down here in Westmoreland, or he's in Fayette County, and he's the ECOM chapter lead for this whole area here. Okay, all the gold colors. I'm down here in Allegheny County, and these are our counties. And then, of course, up here, Hank, you working with Paul Ringheiser, our ECOM lead for this whole area here. And of course, you guys were in Wayne County over here with Lake Wallenpaupack up here doing your exercise. So the Red Cross emblems you see are our chapter headquarters in each of the chapter areas. But we do have some satellite offices as well, but these are the chapter areas. So my goal is at one of these set exercises, I'd like to send a message among or between each one of these 8 Red Cross symbols that represent a chapter building at some future set exercise. So that's going to take some coordination, Hank, with Eastern and Western Aries members, and probably a lot of planning to get that done, but I think it's doable.
Yeah, that office is in Wilkes-Barre.
Yes.
And that's in Luzerne County.
Yes.
And we do have an active Aries group down in Luzerne County. I'd have to get them involved in this.
Right. And what I typically are working with is the ECs in each of the regions, both Eastern and Western, and then they work with the respective county folks. It's easier for me to keep track of 10 or 12 section ECs than it is for 61 county ECs. So I think that's the way that the protocol should work.
Right. And
Any
by
questions?
the way, guys, the New York did not steal Susquehanna.
Yeah, we can't explain why this isn't part of greater PA region, but we'll talk about that for another time. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, Hank, I'm having trouble with Zoom tonight. It's very unstable, and I was having trouble hearing Ed and Dave there. I wonder if you could ask him to send that screenshot that he shared of that map to you. I'd be interested in having a copy of that. Also, I was wondering how many members did Ed say he had in his organization?
Dave, you mean?
No, you asked Ed originally, why are you, how many members he had, and his audio was garbled. I couldn't hear him. And also, I'd sure like to have a copy of Dave's screen that he shared, that map over.
Okay, I'll ask for that. And 15.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Robert's having problems with his computer up there, and
Okay.
he wanted to know if he could have a copy of that map. That
Absolutely.
If you could email that to me, I'll distribute it to all of our guys. Okay.
Okay, we'll do, Hank.
All right. Does anybody have any other further comments that they would like to make before we draw this wonderful party to a close? I just appreciate it. I'm very, very proud of everybody. They did a wonderful job, and I was just delighted sitting back reading the mail as all the messages was taking place, and everybody was handling the traffic and so forth. And by the way, Charlie, KB2 I forget his call, down in Monroe County. He sent me an email that he couldn't be on here tonight. He wanted to, but he did a good job, and he had a gal down there, Ruth Ann, who was actually at the Red Cross facility in Stroudsburg, and she was an experienced traffic handler, and she did a terrific job down at her end as well. So that link went very, very well, and very appreciative of the work that they did. Anyway, anybody have any final comments?
Hey, Hank.
Yeah. Robert? Robert?
Yeah, hey, this is Bob. Yeah, hey, a couple things. I didn't hear from KC3HOS Tom down there tonight. I'm not sure if he had anything to say or not. Also, Charlie's KB3JUF, and he wanted to say that he does check in quite often on the main potato net. And Dave and Ed, if you have 75 meters, if you can get on at this until the end of April, the main potato net, we meet on 3.958 on 75 meters. I'm net control on Thursday nights, but you guys are welcome to join us. If you have 75, would be good to hear from your part of the state. So that's the main potato net. Right now we meet at 6 o'clock. We'll be meeting at 6:30 after the end of the month. So anyway, glad to have you two in here tonight. Good to hear from you. I'm anxious to get a copy of that map, Dave. That looked really interesting. Unfortunately, my internet connection is very unstable, but I'd like to have that map to print out and put in my ARES manual. Anyway, 73 to you two guys. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Back to you, Hank.
Yeah, Tom did have an opportunity to comment, and all he has to do is wave his hand and we'll recognize him, and he can give us some more blurb. Anybody else have any comments? Go ahead.
I have one thing. I have a confession to make. If you get the chance to check into your email on the ARL newsletter, if you go down to the part where it says about the volunteer observers, and you look down to where it refers to the couple from Perryopolis. That is my wife and myself. We received an award from Riley Hollingsworth. He checked into my Western PA phone traffic net on a Wednesday when I was running a net control. And then while we were doing our 2 meter net Friday night, Aries net on 2 meter, he was in the area and checked into that also. And me and her got a surprise. She's a technician, and of course I'm a general. We both got a surprise and got the commendation for the good operator report from Raleigh. So if you guys happen to see that and it says Perryopolis,
there you go.
Okay, thank you.
Hank,
Very good.
Hank, I'd like to invite you to our Monday evening ecom meeting that I have for all of our chapters at the Red Cross to present this well laid out plan and just review it with you. Maybe 15 minutes. Are you available?